But I do wonder if there's a way that we can enhance his Hannibal Lecter action figure using the figures we already have in our collection from NECA. Like these guys, perhaps.
It's so crazy it just might work.
Hello guys, it's Alan the Collector, and today we've got an interesting one. We're taking a look at the Silence of the Lambs Hannibal Lecter action figure by NECA. And right off the bat, we get that ultimate style window box packaging that we've come to expect from NECA, which is kind of funny because if you ask me, there's nothing ultimate about this figure. In fact, there's nothing action about this figure either. More on that in a bit. But this packaging does show off the official poster artwork for the film depicting Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of the man-eater Hannibal Lecter, along with the image of that iconic Death Head Moth. In fact, it kind of reminds me of a Phil Collins album. I think it was titled No Straitjacket Required. Anyways, beneath that we get a logo of the film, and then when we get to the back of the packaging, we not only get a brief read-up for the film, but we also get some strikingly familiar product shots bathed in red. We also get 4 more product shots beneath that, and then when we get to the bottom of the packaging, as usual, we have to show off those at NECA responsible for this figure, regardless of how new it actually is. The sides feature more of the film's title, as does the top, and then when we get back to the front, we can open this Velcro panel to reveal a statue? It can't be.
Closer.
No, it totally is. But the only way we're gonna find out how cool it is if we free this people-munching psycho from his cardboard prison. And here we have a very statuesque Hannibal Lecter figure out of packaging, and I have to say I'm a bit disappointed, mainly because this is essentially a re-release of that original Hannibal Lecter figure by NECA all the way back in 2007. Now there are a few new things going on with this figure, and we'll be sure to talk about all of it, but first, let's take a look at his accessories. Now this Hannibal figure is pretty light on accessories. He comes with 2 alternate heads, one smiling, one bloody, 1 police baton, as well as a base and 2 sets of bars to create a jail cell diorama. Now briefly going over the sculpt of this figure, it's pretty good, if this was 20 years ago. From the neck down, he's every bit that cult classics figure, but we do get some updates with his head sculpt. We can see some evidence of digital printing to really help maintain the likeness of Anthony Hopkins. I like how striking his blue eyes came out, and then the red paint smeared around his mouth is also pretty convincing. I also like the fact that his head sculpt is molded in a flesh tone plastic as opposed to being painted, so all of those wrinkles and divots in his skin really come through very naturally. I also like how that when we go to the back of his head, he is balding a bit. His hair has been sculpted so it really looks like it's been slicked back. I really dig the look of the wrinkles that we get. I love how it's contouring to the shape of his body as he's lifting up his right arm. And the same could be said for his pants as well. We get a lot of natural folds and bends, and I like the way the light is capturing it as well. There's also a subtle dry brushing just to help bring out and accentuate those shadows on his clothes. Going back up to the top of his shirt, we get a pretty natural looking blood splatter. Now, even though his head is molded in a flesh tone plastic, the same can't be true for his forearms. They are completely painted, but they at least did a good job of making sure that they match. I love the detail of his veins going all the way down to his hand. The same can also be said for his right forearm. That bend looks pretty natural, and then we get a pretty convincing grip here, which will come in handy for the police baton later. As we get down to his feet, they are also painted in the same white as the rest of his prison garb, but notice the lack of shoelaces, a very great attention to detail. And then when we get to the bottom of his feet, they're just painted gray, with some peg holes that will come in handy later for that base. Now as for articulation, as you might expect, he can't move around very much. He does have a ball joint at the base of his neck, an outdated swivel joint when it comes to his shoulder, and then as for his feet, he has a couple of ball joints which do a surprisingly good job of keeping him balanced. And sadly, that's pretty much it.
Ain't that the biggest ripoff you ever heard?
And when a Super 7 reaction figure has more articulation than a NECA figure in 2024, we've got a problem. But let's see if Hannibal here gets any cooler with the inclusion of these additional head sculpts. Now this one sporting a creepy smile is the look he probably gets when you say you're gonna feed him some fresh liver, and this one is when he realizes that it's just a fake imitation meat. Both of them do a pretty good job of capturing a younger Anthony Hopkins, and because of the ball joint, they'll do a pretty good job of swapping out. Now while this head sculpt does look pretty decent, again it doesn't really make sense attached to his body because of the blood splatter that we get on the clothing. Obviously if his clothes look like this, then his mouth should also be smeared with the red stuff if we're going by the timeline of that escape scene. This more neutral expression, on the other hand, does a much better job of matching that escape scene, as well as the paint job we get for the rest of this body. But if this look alone isn't doing it for you, we do get this police baton. It's just molded in black plastic. It kind of reminds me of a tonfa, and then I like these rivets that we get for the grip. And it will simply fit into Hannibal Lecter's hand like so. I must admit, it's not the most exciting look in the world. He pretty much just stands there with it. However, it does help complete the look of the film, and if you want to complete the rest of it, we do get this diorama piece and the jail cell that he comes with. This is an exact replication of the diorama piece that came with that original cult classic figure, putting the bars down. If we take a look at the base, we get a look at Hannibal Lecter's requested dinner. We also get some blood staining the wood floor here, as well as a portion of the rug that was inside the jail cell. It looks to be applied here with the sticker. As for the rest of the details, we get a salt shaker, some keys, and some other details that were present, possibly the pocket knife that he used, as well as the pepper spray canister. As for the bars, we get 2 sets of them. The plastic isn't the most durable feeling in the world, but it works well enough. I like the gunmetal gray that we're getting, and when you combine them with the base, you will be able to create at least one corner of Hannibal Lecter's cell. All you have to do is line the bars up with the peg holes on the base. And then once you've done that, you just peg Hannibal Lecter in. And here we have Hannibal Lecter pegged into his assembled jail cell, and I have to say, as good as this figure looks, I'm pretty underwhelmed. This is a big reason why I don't collect statues. They just kind of sit there. They don't do anything else. And the diorama is a nice touch, but it isn't the highest quality thing I've ever seen, which basically brings me to my 2 biggest problems with this set. Number 1 is that this figure uses Ultimate style packaging, which if anything is just a bit misleading. Even though this packaging doesn't label this Hannibal Lecter figure as an Ultimate action figure, it still has that look, and if you're not familiar with NECA products, it would be easy to confuse the two. Number 2 is that this figure is $34.99.
What?
Nothing about this figure is worth almost $40 after tax, especially when you consider what you can get for $34, which also happens to be most NECA Ultimate figures. Like, for example, their Ultimate Wolfman action figure or their Ultimate Feral Predator. Both figures about the same price as this, come with way more accessories, and they're fully articulated. So NECA really needs to consider why they're charging this much for what amounts to a re-release statue. But I do wonder if there's a way that we can enhance this Hannibal Lecter action figure using the figures we already have in our collection from NECA, like these guys perhaps.
It's so crazy it just might work.
Now these are just a few of the T-1000 figures NECA has produced over the years. This one came from their Terminator Genesis line back in 2014, and then these 2 are their Ultimate T-1000 figures from the Terminator 2 line. And they not only pair well with Hannibal Lecter from that escape scene in the film, but they also share similar sized ball joints at the neck, so there's some unexpected compatibility as well. I think I'm gonna call this look right here Cannibal Cop. What do you think?
It sounds like a damn monster movie.
Now, I thought about putting these 2 figures together because there's a scene in the film where Hannibal Lecter disguises himself as one of the officers that he injures. And when you do put these figures together, he does become fully articulated. So, Dr. Lecter, what do you think? Pretty cool, huh?
Almost, not quite.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta be honest, it's not the most perfect fit in the world. This ball joint does pop off fairly easily, but it does friction on well enough. When you shake it, it's not going anywhere. So if you are looking for one way to enhance your Hannibal Lecter action figure using a T-1000 body you may already have in your collection, I think it works well enough. And for those who are curious, here's how those extra heads look on those other T-1000 bodies. Not a bad little cannibal kit bash if you ask me.
You know, I believe we're making progress.
But if you don't want to go this route, there are some other ways you can use these bodies to interact with this Hannibal Lecter figure. Now, if you do want to recreate an iconic scene from the film, you can utilize a T-1000 superior articulation to have him crouch down in this cell to showcase when Hannibal Lecter is enacting his escape plan. Now, as good as this looks, what about that other officer that Hannibal Lecter turned into a snack? Well, believe it or not, we can replicate that using an unlikely accessory in this human jack-o'-lantern. Now, this accessory came with NECA's Ultimate Michael Myers figure from the 2018 film, and in addition to being able to actually illuminate when paired up with the light, that hole at the base of his neck, while gruesome, is also functional. It can actually double as a socket for a ball joint.
Show me.
If we remove the T-1000's head, plug this human jack-o'-lantern on, you can actually have a rather injured officer that Hannibal Lecter can nibble on.
That's just nasty.
I know it's a bit of a stretch, but if you are looking for ways to enhance your Hannibal Lecter action figure, you might have those options already waiting for you in your collection. Alright, and just for kicks and giggles, I decided to give one more head swap to this body from NECA's Terminator 2 line. Check out this name I'm workshopping. I'm gonna call this the T800. He'd be all like, I need your liver, your fava beans, and a nice Chianti. I know it's a little bit wacky, but they are compatible. So if you're looking for another way to get some fun out of this Hannibal Lecter figure, you might have another option here with the T800 bodies.
Yeah. That was good.
And moving on to size comparisons, NECA's Hannibal Lecter figure is going to stand just over 7 inches tall when plugged into that diorama, so he's going to pair well with other flesh eaters like the Smoker and Boomer figures from their Left 4 Dead line, or their 2 versions of Pennywise. He's just as tall but not nearly as massive as the monsters from the Power Rangers Lightning collection. He'll stand just a bit taller than other psychotic villains from the Marvel Legends line, and I think it'll be fun to pair him alongside the food characters from Jazzware's Fortnite line. He'll be taller than most of the Joe figures from the G.I. Joe Classified line, but he'll be right on par with other 7-inch lines, like McFarlane's DC Multiverse Dark Knight figures, Diamond Select's Westworld action figures, and then of course NECA's 1990 Ninja Turtle movie figures. And as always, here's how he looks under black light. Not much of a reaction, but I'll take it. Now as for my final thoughts, I think horror fans are gonna rejoice, but if you're a fan of truly articulated action figures, you're gonna be let down here. I did have a lot of fun with this review, but I can't recommend this figure, mostly because it's a statue. I just don't see the value in them, especially ones that cost as much as a NECA Ultimate figure but do and come with a whole lot less. The updates that we're getting on the head sculpt are nice. It's just that everything else about this figure is outdated. So if NECA came back and gave us a real articulated line of Hannibal Lecter action figures, I'd be down. This just isn't it. But if you were on the fence, perhaps I gave you a few ideas of how you can make this figure even better. And maybe, NECA, if you're watching, take some of my ideas and make them a reality. I'd love to see a Hannibal Lecter in his police disguise, or a second articulated version strapped up to a gurney. The only other real benefit that I can see with getting this figure is that currently on the aftermarket, the original Cult Classics figure from all the way back in 2006 and 2007 are selling for upwards of $100, maybe even $200 sometimes. And the head sculpts aren't nearly as updated as this. So if you were trying to get your hands on that figure, you will save a pretty penny, and it looks that much better too. But that'll do it for this review. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I know I have a lot of crazy ideas on this channel, but hopefully you guys see the value in them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my video, especially if you think it could help someone else. Stick around for a gallery at the end, and as always, collect responsibly.